Thirdly, practical thing from my For What It's Worth department, sleep when you're tired. I think trying to force yourself to stay awake when you're tired just makes you miserable, irritable, and you don't get the work done. So my general principle, my general advice, sleep first. Not only will you feel better, have more energy, but often during sleep, things that you've been puzzled about or worried about seem to work themselves out. And so I'm an advocate of taking naps. I find that even just a little nap will give me a whole boost of energy. And so I advise, take naps if at all possible, even if it means coming to a meeting with deep creases in your head. Even if it means having a morning voice in the middle of the afternoon. Fourthly, I find it helpful to think of living in two different spaces psychologically. Two different spaces, that of time and that of eternity. On the one hand, of course, we're connected to the everyday world of time, but I believe we also belong to that which is timeless. All the religions teach this. T.S. Eliot speaks of the still point in time. The still point in time, the timeless center that stands in the midst of time and anchors time. When the present time overwhelms us, then we need that place that does not change and does not move. To make it adequately through our particular time, we need to know that we also belong to that which is universal and eternal, to that which always is, always was, and always will be. The psalmist says, "Unto the hills I lift mine eyes, from whence comes my help." The mountains, the hills, they're a symbol of that which is eternal and does not move, does not change. And fifthly, how do we stay connected to that timeless center? It may be helpful to have some kind of spiritual discipline or exercise or practice. A practice of prayer or meditation or active imagination or the recording of one's dreams or body work. A quiet time, a time to walk in the woods, a time to watch the waves, a time to stare at the stars. Something repetitious, something that quiets the active, time-bound mind and relates us to that still point within. We've pretty much lost the idea of Sabbath in our culture. Even the most holy of the holidays, the stores are now open. And sabbaticals at work, where they still exist, don't serve the function that they once used to. Originally, sabbaticals meant rest, relaxation, take a break. Now, sabbaticals have to do with projects. They're project-oriented. Each of us, however, needs to find a way to take a break, to rest, to call time out. I think of the words of an old hymn, "Take time to be holy, speak oft with thy Lord. Find that quiet place of repose which centers the heart and the soul and the mind." Sixthly, a paradox. Time is precious. To make proper use of it, realize that you have all the time in the world. You're all familiar with the beer advertisement. You only go around once in life, so grab for all the gusto you can get. Wrong, way off, not even close. Paradoxically, to live fully and deeply and meaningfully in time You need to die to the desires of the ego. You need to let go, and you need to surrender. We need to let some air into our lives. We need to take things out of our schedule, subtract a couple of things each day. Marjorie Kelly again writes, "Only half our task is getting life to do what we want it to do. The other half is discovering where life itself wants to go." Or, to put it into religious terms, God deserves at least a portion of our day. And if we fill our entire day up and fill our entire lives up with all our rational plans, then pretty soon we're going to just exhaust and enervate ourselves and lose the meaning of our time. Seventh, another practical suggestion, which may seem a bit in contrast to what I've just said. Do it now. Don't delay. Don't let something cross your desk more than once. Don't write a note to yourself about writing a letter. Instead, write the letter. Every once in a while, I follow this advice. I did this last week, for example. One day, I went to my mail slot and I took out the notes and letters that were in it, and I didn't even go through all of them at once. I just started with the top one, and one by one I went through them and did what was required. I wrote a letter, I made a telephone call, I recorded what needed to be recorded, and it went, I worked leisurely and quickly at the same time. The two are not opposites necessarily. And I found that I had time to go back to other days and to pick up things where I hadn't followed this method. Finally, the last one in my eightfold plan. Don't be too hard on yourself. Don't beat up on yourself if you find that your life isn't always in control. I think this week I've nearly broken every piece of advice that I've just given you. It's been an overly busy week for me, trying to get things together for this service. It took a lot longer to put this sermon together than I thought it would. I didn't spend the time with my family like I expected. I didn't spend any time in meditation or with any spiritual discipline. I didn't pay any attention to my body. The one dream I remember was of two men beating each other up, a symbol, I believe, of how I was treating myself. And I didn't get any sleep last night. My computer broke down this morning. Don't ever do a sermon on being too busy. But I'm not going to let it bother me. And I'm not going to be too hard on myself, because I am learning that change comes slowly, that life's a journey, and as Robert Johnson said, even though we take 2 steps forward and go back 3, we still get to heaven anyway, because we were going the wrong direction in the first place. And now may peace be in our hearts and understanding in our minds. May courage steel our wills and the love of truth forever guide us. Amen.